This is me, the Infinity Midwife, coming to you once again. Now, I was doing a live on Instagram, but I decided to bring it over here on my YouTube because I feel like it's a topic that, first of all, needs to be heard. And then second of all, I feel like I have more subscribers, or I have more people that look at those videos. And then if you want to look at it at a later time, you can do it on my channel. Okay. So the topic of today is negative emotions. So I started on my IG, but I'm still going to go over it here. So I was saying how important it is to feel both emotions. Okay. Meaning both categories of emotions. Those that are perceived as positive and those that are perceived as negative. Okay. Here's why. We live in a modern day time where people are being pushed and encouraged to consume, right? But you can only consume when you're getting a high out of it, when you're getting a form of, thrill out of it, right? Or joy. So it's going to stimulate a part of your brain or your hormone, and it's mostly serotonin, where you're going to feel like, you're going to feel upbeat. You're going to feel like, hey, you want to spend money, or you want to be entertained, right? That's the type of society in which we live. We are being triggered constantly through advertisement, through music, through a type of video, movies, just basic advertisement, radio. We are constantly bombarded with marketing as to how we need to keep on consuming. Okay. So that's what those modern day society push for. But if we look at how important, a human being needs to be balanced, we cannot just live in the extreme of, pushing for those positive emotions, right? We have to have balance, this homeostasis, or what's it called? This internal balance that we all need to thrive to be in. Well, there needs to be a balance as to how we feel, how we process emotions. And so I feel that in these modern day societies, negative emotions are labeled as bad. And a lot of people feel that, if they feel a certain way, whether it's anger, frustration, anxiety, stress, grief, sadness, right? They're going to be labeled as, even marginalized, right? Every day, like everybody today, even the people in the industry of self-development are going to push for, extreme positivity, or they're going to push for, try to be positive as much as you can. But that is not the reality. The reality is we feel both positive and negative emotions, and they shouldn't be labeled as to which is bad or which is good. They all need to be felt and processed. Because why? So first of all, depression is a state of being, or is a repercussion of accumulation of emotions that has not been processed or felt. Okay. So because we have different or many parts of ourselves, I like to call our shadow self, or the shadow aspect of yourself. Why the shadow aspect of yourself? Because the shadow, just like when you walk, your shadow is there, but you don't constantly look at it, right? It has just become part of yourself, but that you choose to ignore, right? So in that shadow box, or that shadow self, that's where you store everything that is not necessarily shared with the public or with your friends or with your community, right? You're going to store in there your secrets. You're going to store in there habits or vices, patterns, defense mechanism. You're going to store in there all the things that you don't want to share, maybe with another, or maybe with your community, your family. So in that box, that's where you're going to store those negative emotions. And so when you do not take the time to feel, take the time to acknowledge your negative emotions and to feel them and to process them, that's in that box that it's going to go. Okay. And then your shadow, or your shadow self, is going to want to express it to you. Okay. It's going to, and I call it the alerts. your shadow self is going to alert you that something is wrong, something needs to be addressed, right? And it's going to do that through many forms of alerts. The first one can be depression, right? You don't want to do anything. You talk your way out of doing things or engaging with people. You stay in your corner, or, you're just going through self-sabotage because you feel that, something is wrong with you, but you don't really know what it is, right? That's depression. It could be mild or severe. It's different. There can be illness, right? Your body's going to tell you, hey, we need to do something about this. And most of the time, when you will go see a doctor, right, your doctor is going to want to evaluate where's the sickness coming from. But most of the time, if you're not in tune with your emotions, you're not going to be able to communicate to your doctor that, you're feeling a certain way, because, again, you don't want to be labeled as a bad person or as a person that is constantly negative, right? So you're just probably, going to miss out or leave out some information to your doctor. And so he's not going to be able to maybe diagnose or, do the proper diagnosis to inform you that, you're probably dealing with some negative emotions, or you're probably not dealing with some negative emotions that you're storing somewhere, and it translates into a sickness. But most of the time, most doctors won't be able to see it, right? Unless you communicate, unless you are aware of it, right? But because we live in a society that pushes so much so for positivity, because we don't want to be marginalized or pushed aside or labeled as bad or as negative, we're not gonna address those negative emotions. We're just gonna store them under the rug in that box, right? And so what happens is that your body's going to want to alert you through an illness, a sickness that isn't going to be, that isn't going to be labeled, because doctors are not going to find the origin, because you yourself have not gotten the awareness of this, as to where is it coming from, right? It can be depression. It can be explosions of anger, frustration for nothing, right? You can have this impulsiveness of, being easily triggered. It can be as well through, what else do I want to say? So your body's going to want to alert you, okay, through one way or another. But if you ignore these alerts, okay, that's when your shadow self is going to act on your behalf to let you know that something is wrong or something has not been addressed. That's when, you're going to feel like you're out of control, because it's not you driving the car or your vessel. It's actually your shadow self that has taken over, or that has hijacked part of your mind to let you know that something is wrong, that something needs to be addressed. Okay. So when those negative emotions do arise, right, there are many ways to deal with them. One is to name them. One is to express them. One is to have a safe space where you can just maybe journal, or where you can go to the gym. Like, you need to alchemize those negative emotions. It's very important, because when you don't do that, what happens? So first, it starts in the shadow box, okay? And then the shadow box takes control of your internal space, your mental space. That's when you're going to feel easily triggered. You're going to feel that people are coming at you. You're going to feel like the world is against you. And I know this because I've been there, and sometimes I still am there. Okay. So I need to deal with them. So, you're going to feel a certain way. And then if you are honest enough and you have the awareness to deal with them, you're going to deal with them. When I say dealing with them, it can be a simple dialogue as to why you're feeling the way you're feeling, right? It can be a dialogue. It can be, and when I say dialogue, I mean monologue with yourself, okay? More so. It can also be journaling things down. It can be through a form of meditation where you allow your mind, right, you put in the attention that you want your shadow self to reveal itself to you, and all the things that you weren't aware of. Okay, then there could be many other ways, like going to the gym. Going to the gym is one that is more or less favorable, because you would still need to have the awareness as to when you pick up some negative emotions. Your outlet is the gym. So it's going to be a response. But you're going to have the awareness of saying, okay, I'm triggered. This is how I'm feeling. You're going to have to acknowledge that negative emotion and then transmute it by going to the gym or doing 20 push-ups or doing something. So there are many ways to deal with negative emotions, but when they're not dealt with, they start in that shadow box. And then it takes control of your whole mental space. And then what happens is you start projecting. You start projecting because you had not have the awareness of your own negative emotions. So you start projecting it on different people that come your way, that come across your way. Okay. If it's been people that, you had a certain prejudice or a certain, I want to say certain history with, you're going to be closed off totally as to, even having contact with them, because you've had certain memories that triggers, those emotions that are in that shadow box. Or it can be people that come at you, but because again, if you have not done the work of being in that awareness, right, you're going to feel very triggered, or you're going to be very reactive. Okay. And one other thing that I do want to say that's really, really important. If you're dealing with negative emotions, you're having a hard time dealing with them, you have a tendency to probably project it on other people. If you know that you have negative emotions and you're not dealing with them, what tends to happen is two things, okay? Two ways. Two pathways. One is you have the awareness. You have the awareness that you're doing this, okay? And you choose not to do anything about it. The other pathway is, so there's three pathways. One is you have the awareness and you choose to do nothing about it. The second pathway is you have the awareness and you choose to do something about it. And the third pathway is you don't have the awareness. Therefore, you don't know that this is going on. Okay? So the first pathway, you have the awareness that you have negative emotions, but you have not dealt with them, or there's still something lingering there. And let's say, for instance, a circumstance or an opportunity present itself for you to deal with them, but you're still projecting, or you're still, trying to deny yourself that you are actually dealing with some negative emotions that weren't dealt with. So there's always a choice here. What do? Do you take a step back do you take a step back to acknowledge that there are some negative emotions, and therefore you can do probably something, to deal with it? Or you choose to still project because, your ego steps in and wants to be right. So you're going to push for wanting to be right. So now it's two parts of yourself, your shadow self and your ego, that steps in and that is projecting and that wants to be right on why they are projecting onto the other person. So that's the first pathway. You are aware, or you deal with it, or you don't. When you don't, your ego and your shadow self steps in and they persist in being right. So that's constant projection. The second solution is you deal with it and then you do not project again on, a circumstance, a situation. So there's always going to be opportunities